Namaskar viewers. Hello and welcome to Sunset TV. I'm Tina Jha. You're watching Perspective. On the show today, we are talking about a concept that has just won the Nobel Prize for Economics 2025, a powerful idea that continues to shape the world we live in. It is called creative destruction, first introduced by economist Joseph Schumpeter back in 1942 and now recognized as the driving engine behind centuries of economic progress. So from the Industrial Revolution to the current digital age, creative destruction has been the transformative force that replaces the old with the new, disrupting industries, reshaping societies, and also redefining how we live and work. Technological innovation and scientific progress have together created a cycle of continuous renewal, leading to sustained and remarkably stable economic growth. In fact, over the past 2 centuries, the world has witnessed unprecedented growth fueled by the constant flow of new ideas and technologies. The 2025 Nobel Prize in Economics celebrates this very understanding of sustained growth driven by technological innovation. Economic historian Joel Mokyr of Northwestern University, USA, was awarded one half of the prize for identifying the prerequisites for sustained growth through technological progress, while the other half went jointly to Philippe Aghion of Collège de France, INSEAD Paris, and the London School of Economics, and also Peter Howitt of Brown University, USA, for developing the theory of sustained growth through creative destruction. In order to help us understand this concept, its historical roots, its real-world impact, and how it continues to drive innovation and economic growth, we are joined today by 2 distinguished professors. I'm delighted to welcome on the program today Professor Vimal Kumar, Department of Economic Sciences, IIT Kanpur. Professor, thank you for your time. Welcome to Sunset TV.
Thank you very much for inviting me, Tina. Thanks.
And we also have Professor Charan Singh. He's a noted economist and CEO, eGrow Foundation. Thank you, Singh. Always a pleasure to have you with us on the programs. So, Professor Kumar, let's begin the program today with you. In fact, I came across a very insightful, a beautiful article that you've written in which you've connected Indian mythology with modern economics. You've compared Lord Shiva's cosmic role to Schumpeter's idea of creative destruction, asserting on how in a finite world, the old must give way to the new. To begin with, and for the benefit of our viewers, especially those who've not been able to get hold of that article until yet, could you elaborate on this parallel that you've drawn in your article and also explain to us how it captures the essence of modern economic growth?
Definitely. Thank you very much for giving me this opportunity. See, first of all, let us understand what creative destruction is. You know, it is mix of 2 processes. One is innovation, where new things are created, and also innovation is accompanied by obsolescence, where old things becomes useless. So this innovation fuels growth and productivity, but it also creates friction between old and new, between stability and change. And so I always used to think, in Hindu Dharma, we have these Brahma, Vishnu or Mahesh. And I always thought that we should be worshipping Brahma as he creates the world. We should be worshipping Vishnu as he feeds the world. Why do we worship the destroyer called Shiva? And when I started reading Schumpeter, his book, Capitalism, Socialism and Democracy, that he wrote, I think in 40s, where first time he mentioned the term creative destruction, light bulb went on in my mind. I realized that that's what he was talking about, that, to create something new, the old has to be destroyed. Because the foundation of why do we have economics? Economics, the simple reason we have economics, that we have unlimited desire. We want to fulfill so many things, but we have limited resources. So these resources would run out. You cannot keep on producing new. You cannot keep on creating new. So the old has to give way to new to be created. Absolutely. And that's where Shiva comes in. It's not just mindless annihilation of old thing. It's the mindful decision of what to destroy and what to create. That plays very, very important role. And so I was able to see parallel when I was a PhD student in economics. I was able to see parallel in this creative destruction and the role of Shiva. So So that's what I talked about. Whenever these new things are created, they invariably bring friction with the old, because old doesn't want to just give space to the new. There in these days we are talking about AI coming, environmental changes happening. People are very fearful of losing the job. So if this is not managed well, and that's how I got this idea of this halahal, that whenever churning happens, the first thing that comes out is halahal. If you want to make a change, if you want to create new, you have to displace old, but old will not give away. So this halahal has to be managed. This institution, you have to have some sort of institutions that manages this transition. And that's where is the role of Siva. And Siva is just a representation of what we thought is important for creation. In that way, I was able to link this creative destruction with Siva's metaphor.
So before I go across to Professor Singh and try and understand from him why, when we say destruction is not something to fear but to manage, and how effectively is India managing it. Professor, first your thoughts on this parallel that Professor Kumar has drawn between Hindu mythology and the concept of creative destruction. Do you believe that the destructor is as important in the process of growth as is the preserver and the creator? And are the policymakers, especially in context of talking about growth, are they looking at that balance in the manner that Professor Kumar has described?
So, Professor Philip Aghion was at Harvard when I was doing my postdoctoral studies.
Oh.
In 2003 and 4. He was a dear friend, his young son, and we used to interact. At eGrow Foundation in May 2021, Professor Philip Aghion has come and made a presentation on exactly this theme. And then I had said, Professor, you will probably win a Nobel Prize because you are thinking so innovatively. But inside we who belong to India, Indus Valley civilization, we already know that we believe in reincarnation. As we grow old, our body can't take it, we take rebirth and come back again. There are enough hymns, enough philosophy in our culture which says that this gentleman has all the things that was in that earlier gentleman of the previous generation. We all grow. We all outgrow our habits. What you are today, you are not 20 years ago. What you were 20 years ago, you are not when you were 5 years ago. So we are all outgrowing. We are changing. And when the physical body is not able to live with that outgrowth, we change our garb and take a new life, new birth. This is exactly what I was telling Philip Aghion, that your hypothesis and Schumpeter's hypothesis talks about. The old gives birth to the new continues to grow, stagnate, and is over, and then something new comes up. Now please remember, when we were young, there was something called a huge computer, and today I can take all the facilities of that computer from my cell phone. When I used to grow up, a transistor used to be a very important component for a young man, and then came the Walkman. Today everything is compact into the cell phone. So I was telling Professor Philip Aghion that this hypothesis which you have come out with, in the Christian world they do not have the reincarnation story. We in India have. Right. And what you are saying, Professor Schumpeter or Professor Aghion, you are basically telling us what we already knew, that we grow and continue to grow and then we reincarnate. We have individuals in our civilization we call Rakshas, then Manush and Devta. The Manush has evolved into a Devta. What is it? It is exactly what Schumpeter is saying, that you are growing, or what Philip Aghion is saying, you are growing. Who will grow? How can you grow? Exactly what the other professor, Joel Mocker, said. You need an environment. You need a culture. And that's what I always said. In Indian civilization, to grow and not become a Rakshas but become a Devta, you need the help of meditation, good deeds, good action, good sangati, and then you grow into a devta. Otherwise, you can fall into the trap of a rakshasa.
Yes.
So, to me, the whole theory of Schumpeter and Philip Aghian's interaction, extensive interaction, only reminded me of the Indian civilization. Now, coming to Professor, who just mentioned about the three, the Brahma, Vishnu, Mahesh, that is one way of putting it. The way I had been thinking about Schumpeter is what I have narrated to you. I totally identify the different interpretations of the same phenomenon. So therefore, it's a cycle. And in Indian philosophy, where there's reincarnation philosophy, it's a cycle which grows. And from one reincarnation to the other, you grow. And there are hymns which will say that you can, if you haven't done properly what your role is in this birth, you will get into a Rakshas or a lower category. If you've done better, you grow into a Devta category. Again, what Schumpeter is saying. By the way, when Schumpeter was writing his book, he was very pessimistic. And he said, where will all this grow? And there's going to be creative destruction. But he said destruction is going to bring an end to capitalism. And Professor Philip Aghian said, no. And that's exactly where Philip Aghian's work is taking a step ahead of Schumpeter, saying that there'll be competitism. Through competition, you will be able to quell, you will be able to go beyond the pessimism of Schumpeter and say it will all get destroyed. No, you will innovate. Because of competition, you want to survive, you will innovate. And as you will innovate, something new will evolve.
That's right. So
Now,
Professor Schumpeter, despite being the father of this concept of creative destruction, he may not have been rewarded as much, but his work today has been accoladed because of the works of Professor Aghian and Professor Howitt, something which will help us understand this concept of the old being replaced by the new, and why it's important for the new to not just replace the old one, but perhaps add value and take that growth forward, something that their works and their explanations have done so far, and which has helped them win the Nobel Prize for Economics this year as well. But if we apply that to the current context, Professor Kumar, and especially in the Indian context, if I may ask you, India today is one of the fastest growing major economies. In fact, the IMF just yesterday revised our growth forecast for the current fiscal as well as the next fiscal. But if you look at the growth that we've had over the last few years, where do you see the concept of creative destruction more evidently, more visible? Something that these professors have also tried to explain, but if we try and understand it in the context of India?
Definitely. Before I get into your question, I just would like to point out that it's not like Nobel Committee didn't decide to give a Nobel Prize to Schumpeter. They have this particular requirement that the person has to be alive. Economics Nobel Prize started in 1969, and I think Schumpeter passed away before 1969. That's why perhaps he missed the bus. But coming to your question, that, we are seeing these conflict, new versus old in India in so many different sectors. Let us take, for example, e-commerce. There is a now perpetual fight is perhaps too strong a word to say, but, irritants between kiranas and platform. The issue is of competition and fair trade. I'm not saying it has to be managed. One conclusion needs to be reached. Now pretty soon, because we are talking about EVs, we will have discussion between these ICE vehicles versus EVs. How much should be the GST? How should be the charging infra? When industry is going to shift, how it's going to be done? Lot of digital technologies are coming. How to regulate them? How to make sure that inclusion happens? In renewable, we are under tremendous pressure from, because of different protocols or the treaties that we have signed and we have been parties to. The debate between renewable, that, old is coal and the new solar. So again, how it would impact job, how it would impact, transaction and things like that. Just to take example that EVs, when we say that if he's come, they are allowed. Sometime it was said that we should not be allowing EVs. At least that view is gone. That if we do not, if we allow EVs, what would happen to so many drivers? They will lose their jobs. That's where the conflict would be. So India has to think about these questions and think very hard about these questions and resolve one way or the other these things to be managed. Because if new technology is coming, it is beneficial for the society, it should be allowed. At the same time, we have to worry about people who are going to lose job, how to skill them, how to train them for newer activities. We may not need those many drivers in that particular sector. So these questions definitely come to India, and particularly the way the tech innovations are happening. Typically the trend is in the world that new tech comes and it becomes machinery intensive. It means that fewer people would be employed. So over a period, more such conflicts would be there. So we have to very seriously think about skilling and transition policies, how the mobility of labor should be managed. Another thing that I feel is very, very important in India is that regulatory adaptation. Our laws must evolve. The laws that we have, perhaps they are not adequate to manage these digital technologies, and digital companies would be getting into troubles. There isn't proper understanding of these new businesses called platform businesses. That's also becoming quite important. And so government has to, or people have to think about the strategic investment. So we have to support innovation, but again, at the same time, we have to manage these fair competition in the market. So if we are able to manage it well, these creative destruction dividend would pay us really well. But if we don't manage it, it will become a big governance challenge and big bottleneck for our development.
Okay, lots of points there that you've made. Let me take those across to Professor Singh, hear from him what his analysis is about how our government, how India is managing that wave of creative destruction, because clearly we are embracing creative destruction forces in probably every sector, and that is reflecting in the kind of sustained growth that we are seeing. But at the same time, how are we also managing it in a constructive manner? That's something which has been highlighted by the Nobel laureates. That's something that Professor Kumar has also highlighted. How are we striking that balance that growth sustains, but we do not leave the vulnerable groups behind? That's a worry that a lot of analysts have also pointed out. Professor Singh.
Before I go there, I would like to mention Professor Schumpeter was a professor at Harvard, and he lived till 1950, and if you go to Harvard Department of Economics, you find a huge picture of his there. By the way, Professor Philip Aghion was also at Harvard for many years. So the Schumpeterian economics finds quite a bit of place in the Harvard thinking. He was also the finance minister of Austria. So what he was talking was just not theory, but he lived through it and he spoke about it, and with very wide vision that he had. And he lived a life of nearly 70 odd years, so it was not a young professor. Very, very balanced, experienced professor, Professor Schumpeter was. Now, as far as your question is concerned, I'm happy and thrilled to share with you, India is dot on the spot. We are talking of startup funds, Stand Up India. We are talking of sandbags for fintech. What exactly is that? That's exactly the type of financial inclusion that when we were talking in the earlier years, working through business correspondents and brick and mortar branches. Today we are talking of banking technology, sitting wherever you are, through the touch of a phone. The Jam Trinity is itself a great creative thing that we have come out with. So we in India are already way ahead in terms of creative thinking that Professor Aghion or others are talking about. Now you must have also seen that we have the R&D fund. We are providing R&D support. We are also doing in terms of science and technology education. India is amongst the pioneers in STEM. Our IITians, from where Professor is speaking, our IITians are amongst the best in the world. This is exactly what we are doing. We are providing opportunity for R&D, and R&D is the key ingredient in creative destruction. That's the point which Professor Philip again got the Nobel Prize for. The point that he is making and the professor from Brown University is making, Moore is saying that you have to provide a cultural background. Only then innovation will take place. Because industrial revolution only took place 300 years ago. Why not before that? And according to Professor Moore, the cultural situation changed, and that is why you were able to bring in this industrial revolution. The Agian concept is you did it because through R&D you made it an endogenous variable. Moment you made it a part of your construction, part of your technology, part of your business model, introducing competition, and then you're open to competition and you're able to nurture competition in the right direction. If that nurturing had not taken place, Schumpeter was correct. There will be capitalist crisis and capitalism will fade out. But this is what these two Nobel laureates said. It is part of exactly the technology model. And therefore, through competition and accepting competition as acceptable, designing policies which come out with the middle path out of competition, you will be able to survive. Now that is why I say the Atal Tinkering Lab. Atal Tinkering Lab is a bed for doing such innovation at that junior level. Intellectual property protection, again, providing you opportunities for creative destruction so that you are where you are. There's going to be a conflict between the existing and the future, and then the existing gives way to the future, exactly like what happens in Indian household joint family. Generation moves on, wealth improves, quality of life improves. So, in the best example is banking.
Right.
We had ledgers through which we used to work. The railways were booking, but then computer came, and from the computer you had to still go to a bank, railway station to do your booking, and now you can do it anywhere. So jobs have been lost, but many more new jobs have also been created. There is a friction between the old and the new, and then the new prevails. Exactly like happens in a rose garden, where bud is created and the old flower withers and falls away, and a new flower blossoms up. This is exactly what nature does. What in Indian civilization is part of folklore is what these three economists, through a scientific method, proved it. And India is no way behind in any of these. India is providing opportunities through technology and accepting it, channelizing it, permitting it to take over. So nowhere in India do we say that brick and mortar branches are the best. We say banking is the best. And that needs to be done through technological innovation. Brick and mortar branches exist. But the technological innovation has brought the ease of doing business, which this Prime Minister keeps talking about. He wants to bring in ease of doing business, and he's using the technology for that purpose.
In fact, in that context, Professor Kumar, you've mentioned in your article that there's a powerful line that you've written, if we fear Shiva, we stagnate. So we've seen how over the last few years, particularly, India has taken measures through which we are trying to balance innovation, but at the same time take care of the inclusion factor. You've said if we unleash Shiva without absorbing the poison, we invite chaos. What kind of institutional safety nets do you think and transition policies may be required to absorb that poison that you mentioned? Because our target is 2047. We want to become a developed country by 2047. What kind of safety nets, what kind of pace is required to unlock the full potential of India?
I really liked what Professor Singh was saying, that, we Indians are really taking right steps in the right direction. The only quibble that one can have is about the pace. That should we speed up the things that we are doing, or is it the good pace? And that's where the debate could be. So, because, if we want to rip the demographic dividend, and we are at cusp of it, if we do not rip, it would be, because market is going to change very rapidly. The AI is coming, so And it's a general purpose technology. The way steam engine changed the world, the way electricity changed the world, AI is going to change the world. I don't believe it is a bubble. So the market is going to change. Market is going to be a very, very different place come 10, 15 years. So I believe that we have to speed up our skilling effort. We are putting a lot of Skill India effort. There is no doubt about it. Every day we see new scheme coming, and there is genuine effort on government's part to educate and train people in new technology. But I also believe that because the change is going to be so rapid that this is not going to be sufficient. So we need the skilling is very, very important. Second is that investment in critical infrastructure. That I was reading that somewhere by 2030 the world is going to invest $1,800 billion in these new AI technology. The India's investment is going to be $18 billion or 19, roughly 1%. Given our heft, population, the GDP, now I think the time is really ripe that we do way more in this particular direction, because this is transformative technology and lot of conflict is going to come. So Siva's very good example you will see in this advent of AI in a big way in India, because it would make many people redundant. What to do with them? See, so I'm just taking it as an example that if we train our youth, we will be able to reach dividend. But if we leave them, without knowing these new technology, then we would be in a very bad situation. So having completely agreed to Professor Singh, I would prefer a greater pace, more investment in these directions.
So, Professor, we've spoken about these measures, something that now Professor Singh has also recommended. India has embraced innovation and tried to balance it with inclusion in a manner that it has brought us to the cusp of our own industrial revolution, which is powered by digital transformation, startups, making us now the third largest startup ecosystem in the world, and also the kind of innovation-driven economy that we are making India into. In that context, and one last thought, because time is running out, if there's one important area that we need to focus on, or one of the suggestions that you would like to make, particularly for the policymakers, for the entrepreneurs, to focus on to sustain that growth momentum over the next 2 decades, which will take us closer to our 2047 vision?
So the poison of the Shiva, what can it be in such a situation? These three economists are answering it: unemployment. Because innovation is taking place and there can be lots of unemployment. How are we in India taking care of the poison? We are taking care through measures that poison doesn't happen. What are the measures we have done? Food security to 80 crore people we are providing. For the youth, we are providing as many opportunities as possible. We are also ensuring housing for everybody through the Prime Minister's housing schemes, rural and urban. At least they have a house, they have a food. There can be medical issues. The Prime Minister has come out with very, very soft, low-cost medical insurance schemes. And all of it put together, then the Prime Minister has started talking about yogic exercises, which has nothing to do with any religion, simply your breathing and staying healthy. So the poisonous effect of this creative destruction that can happen, that during the transition is being taken care by taking care of the basic amenities that anybody would need. Now comes the other point that you have just raised, and that issue is, while India is innovating extensively, redefining, providing as many facilities as possible for employment generation in MSMEs, Pradhan Mantri's Mudra Yojana schemes, the green revolution and the further research into agriculture, industry 4.0, going for new type of schemes, new opportunities, new thinking in terms of life cycle, which under G20 Prime Minister came out that look, all this industrial revolution led to lots of a climate crisis. But Indian civilization, the richest for 3,000 years, survived all this because we believed in the circular economy. So India is contributing into this whole thing in a very, very significant manner. And the solar, tapping the wind energy for energy resources, these are some of the innovative on the frontier things which India is doing, attempting, so that this creative destruction that Schumpeter spoke about, we are not a victim to it. Climate is a victim. The poison of Shiva is the climate catastrophe that happened, which all these people who led the industrial revolution didn't even think about it. So I think India that way has played a very prominent role in creativity and taking care that the planet doesn't suffer. And G20 and the COP and the Prime Minister's declarations there are a great example of how India is taking care of the destructive activities and trying to take care of the planet.
That's right. What's commendable and remarkable is that we've not just embraced change, but also managed disruption and given a powered innovation, something that will take us closer to our Viksit Bharat vision. It's similar to Shiva's dance, which is both powerful but also purposeful, something that Professor Singh highlighted at the end of the program, that India's growth is not just, it just not means progress, it means sustainable growth and inclusive, equitable progress, which will define a developed India by 2047. Time allows us to take up only that much on the program. Thank you, Professor Singh, Professor Kumar, for joining us for this very, very insightful and engaging conversation on Sansad TV. To you viewers, thank you very much for your time as well.
To watch more programs of Sansad TV, subscribe to our YouTube channel and don't forget to like and share them.